Beneath the surface of our world lies a hidden dimension, one where darkness cradles the echoes of forgotten voices, where time itself seems to slow. Picture this, your footsteps echoing through a cavern so vast, so ancient, that the air hums with the weight of centuries. These subterranean chambers aren't just hollow spaces in the earth. They're the keepers of humanity's most enduring stories. From the moment our ancestors first sought shelter in caves, these underground realms have been woven into the fabric of our collective imagination. They've served as sanctuaries, as temples, as the backdrop for rituals so sacred their meanings have been whispered down through generations. And today, they stand as silent witnesses to the myths that shaped civilizations. Think of the catacombs beneath Rome, where early Christians carved their faith into the very rock, or the Labyrinth of Knossos on Crete, where the legend of the Minotaur was born in the twisting shadows. These places aren't just relics of the past, they're living testaments to how deeply our stories are tied to the earth. What is it about these hidden spaces that captivates us? Perhaps it's the way they defy the passage of time, preserving moments of triumph, terror, and transcendence in their cold, unchanging depths. Or maybe it's the sheer mystery of them, the sense that, even now, there are secrets tucked away in the dark, waiting for the right explorer to bring them to light. This journey isn't just about uncovering ancient ruins or deciphering old inscriptions. It's about understanding how these subterranean chambers became the guardians of entire cultures. They're where myths took root, where gods were worshipped, and where the line between the mundane and the magical blurred. As we venture deeper, you'll discover how these spaces shaped beliefs, inspired art, and even influenced the course of history. So take a deep breath. We're about to step into the unknown, where every turn reveals another layer of the extraordinary. The earth has kept these stories safe for centuries. Now it's time to listen. Long before the first cities rose toward the sky, humanity sought meaning beneath the soil. There's something primal about descending into the earth, a feeling that echoes back to our earliest ancestors who took shelter in caves, their flickering firelight casting shadows that seem to breathe with unseen presence. This instinctual awe is why cultures across the globe, separated by oceans and millennia, all wove similar tales around subterranean spaces. The Mayans believed their sacred cenotes, those shimmering sinkholes, were portals to Xibalba, the watery underworld where gods tested the souls of the dead. In ancient Greece, the Oracle of Delphi delivered prophecies from a chamber said to crack open above a fissure exhaling divine vapors. Even the Hindu texts describe Patala, a luminous netherworld beneath our feet where serpentine deities guard untold riches. What unites these myths isn't just the setting, it's the way they transform the earth's hidden layers into a canvas for the inexplicable. Darkness plays tricks on the mind. A whisper bounces off wet stone and becomes a ghost sigh. Still air stirs and suddenly you're not alone. Early societies weren't just imagining spirits, they were interpreting the very real, uncanny sensations that come with venturing underground. The earth itself seemed alive. Its rumbles became the voices of gods, its hidden chambers their dwelling places. And when you think about it, isn't that how all great myths begin? By giving shape to the unknown, these stories did more than explain the unexplainable. They shaped how entire civilizations understood life, death, and what lies beyond. Take the Zoroastrians of ancient Persia, who buried their dead in silent towers, believing the earth purified what was left behind. Or the Buddhist monks who meditated in Himalayan caves for years, chasing enlightenment in the stillness. Even today, when scientists discover new subterranean chambers like those vast crystalline caves in Mexico, we can't help but wonder what secrets they guard. The underground has always been a mirror, reflecting back whatever we most long or fear to see. And that's the true power of these myths. They remind us that some mysteries aren't meant to be solved. They're meant to be felt. The legend of the Labyrinth at Knossos isn't just a tale, it's a doorway. Step through it, and you'll find yourself standing at the crossroads of myth and history, where the roar of the Minotaur still echoes through time. On the surface, it's a story about a half-man, half-bull monster trapped beneath the palace of King Minos. But dig deeper, and you uncover something far more fascinating, a real-world architectural marvel that may have inspired the myth. The sprawling ruins of Knossos reveal a network of corridors, storerooms, and ritual chambers so convoluted that navigating them feels like walking through a living puzzle. Was this the labyrinth of legend? Not in the literal sense, no bones of a minotaur have been found, but in the way it mirrored the Minoans' view of the world. For them, the underground wasn't just a physical space, it was a reflection of life's uncertainties. The same twisting passages that stored olive oil and grain also hosted sacred rites where priests and priestesses communed with deities in flickering torchlight. Every turn, every dark corner held layers of meaning. The labyrinth became a metaphor for the journey of the soul through danger, through mystery, toward some unknowable truth. Even the Minotaur itself might have been more than a monster. Some scholars suggest it symbolized the wild, untamed forces of nature, or the fear of the unknown that lurks just beneath civilization's polished surface. What makes Knossos extraordinary isn't just its architecture, it's how seamlessly the Minoans blended the practical and the profound. Their storage rooms held the wealth of an empire, while their underground shrines cradled its spiritual heart. This duality reveals a truth about subterranean spaces across cultures. They're never just holes in the ground. They're stages where humanity acts out its deepest dramas, quests for power, confrontations with fear, rituals to make sense of the infinite. The labyrinth endures because it speaks to something timeless, the human need to map the unmappable, to name the nameless, and perhaps that's the real monster in the maze, not the Minotaur, but the mystery itself, waiting in the dark to remind us how much we still don't know. If the Labyrinth of Knossos was a metaphor for the soul's journey, then ancient Egypt's Duat was its most elaborate roadmap, a subterranean highway to eternity. Imagine standing at the edge of a tomb, torch in hand, as the walls around you come alive with hieroglyphs. Every stroke of paint, every carved symbol, is a signpost for the dead, guiding them through a realm where darkness is alive with gods and monsters. The Duat wasn't just an underworld, it was a mirror of the Nile itself, with its own twisting waterways, treacherous sandbanks, and gates guarded by deities who demanded passwords written in stars. The Book of the Dead, often tucked into the bandages of mummies, wasn't a single text but a collection of spells, a cheat sheet for the soul's final exam. Some chapters taught the deceased how to transform into a swallow to escape demons. Others provided the correct answers when Osiris, the god of the afterlife, weighed their heart against the feather of truth. But the most fascinating part, the Duat wasn't a static place. It changed with the hours of the night, each milestone tied to the sun god Ra's perilous journey through it. By day, Ra sailed across the sky. By night, he fought serpentine chaos in the Duat's depths, only to be reborn at dawn. The Egyptians saw this cycle everywhere in the flooding of the Nile, in the rhythm of life and death. Tombs were more than burial chambers, they were rehearsals for the afterlife. The pyramids, with their hidden shafts aligning with constellations, were cosmic launchpads for pharaohs aiming to join the gods. Even the humblest graves faced west toward the setting sun, the direction of the Duat's entrance. And here's the striking part. this wasn't just about fear of the unknown. The Duat's trials were a celebration of order over chaos. Passing through it meant proving you'd lived with Mat the sacred balance of truth and justice. What makes the Duat timeless isn't its monsters or magic spells, but its humanity. Those elaborate funeral rites, those painstakingly painted coffins, they weren't just about avoiding eternal punishment. They were about hope, a hope that death wasn't an end but a doorway, a hope that even in the darkest tunnels of the underworld there was light waiting on the other side. And perhaps that's why these subterranean myths endure. They remind us that beneath our feet, in the quiet dark, generations of dreamers have carved their deepest questions and dared to imagine answers. Beneath Rome's bustling streets, a hidden world stretches for miles, a maze of tunnels where shadows whisper stories of defiance and devotion. The catacombs weren't just burial grounds, they were secret sanctuaries where early Christians, persecuted above ground, carved out spaces to honor their dead and practice their faith. Picture this: narrow passageways lined with shelf-like niches, each holding a body wrapped in linen, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and candle wax. But these walls weren't silent. They were alive with symbols, fish scratched into stone as secret codes, frescoes of Jonah and the whale hinting at resurrection, anchors symbolizing hope in turbulent times. Every mark was an act of quiet rebellion, a way to keep faith alive when discovery could mean death. What makes the catacombs extraordinary isn't just their scale. Some layers plunge 5 stories deep, but how they transformed fear into something sacred. When public worship was forbidden, these tunnels became underground churches. Gatherings held by flickering lamplight turned into rituals of resilience, where whispered prayers echoed like promises. Even the act of burial here was radical. Romans traditionally cremated their dead, but Christians insisted on bodily resurrection, laying their loved ones to rest in these labyrinthine halls as if preparing them for a future awakening. The catacombs became a living map of belief, each corridor a thread connecting the present to an eternal tomorrow. And then there's the art. In the dim recesses of the Catacomb of Priscilla, one of the oldest, you'll find a fresco that still stirs debate. A figure with outstretched arms, flanked by what might be the earliest known depiction of the Virgin Mary. Nearby, a shepherd carries a lamb, a nod to Christ's promise of protection. These images weren't just decoration, they were theology in pigment, teaching stories to a community that couldn't always risk owning scriptures. The catacombs became their library, their classroom, their refuge, but perhaps the most poignant detail lies in the graffiti. Names scratched into walls, tiny crosses etched beside them, not by artists but by ordinary people. A mother mourning a child, a friend marking a visit. These weren't grand monuments, they were intimate acts of love, proof that even in darkness, humanity leaves its mark. The catacombs remind us that oppression rarely erases belief. It just drives it deeper where it grows roots in the unseen. And when the world above finally changed, these tunnels didn't fade into obscurity. They became pilgrimage sites, their very existence a testament to how the marginalized can reshape history from below. High in the Andes, where thin air hums with ancient energy, the stone walls of Chavin-de-Huantar still whisper secrets. This sprawling temple complex isn't just built on the earth, it's built into it with passageways plunging downward like roots seeking the world's heartbeat. Step inside its labyrinthine galleries, and you'll understand why archaeologists call this place a machine for manufacturing wonder. The priests who walked these corridors 3,000 years ago weren't just performing rituals, they were orchestrating experiences designed to overwhelm the senses. Narrow staircases funnel visitors into darkness, their walls carved with jaguar faces that seem to snarl as torchlight flickers. But the real magic lies in the sound. Clap your hands in these chambers, and the echo doesn't just bounce, it transforms. The architecture bends acoustics into something supernatural, turning ordinary noises into the growls of unseen beasts or the murmurs of distant voices. Researchers have measured reverberations lasting nearly 2 full seconds, an eternity when you're standing in the dark, waiting for a god to answer. Imagine being an ancient pilgrim, led through twisting tunnels where every footstep multiplies into thunder, where a priest's chant might suddenly seem to come from all directions at once. It wasn't just theater, it was transcendence engineered in stone. At the heart of this subterranean network lies the lanzon, a 15-foot-tall granite dagger of a deity, its fanged mouth frozen in a roar buried deep in a cross-shaped chamber. To reach it, you'd navigate a maze designed to disorient, emerging into a space where the idol seems to pulse in the uneven light. The effect wasn't accidental. The builders aligned the entire complex with celestial events, so that during solstices, sunlight would spear through ventilation shafts, illuminating the lanzon's eyes as if awakening it. What makes Chavin extraordinary isn't just its technical brilliance, but how every element conspired to blur the line between human and divine. The hallucinogenic cactus brew likely served to pilgrims would have heightened the sensory bombardment, walls that breathed, statues that moved, voices from the stone itself. This wasn't deception, it was a meticulously crafted bridge between worlds. The priests didn't just interpret the gods' will, they made them speak through the very bones of the mountain. Today, when archaeologists play replica shell trumpets called pututus in these galleries, the sound still curls through tunnels like a living thing. It's a reminder that some truths don't fade. The people of Chavin understood something profound. That darkness isn't empty. It's a canvas for the human imagination, a place where faith takes physical form. In these echoing passages, belief wasn't just taught. It was felt in the vibration of the air, seen in the dance of shadows, heard in the mountains' answering roar. And perhaps that's why these underground sanctuaries endure. They prove that sometimes to touch the divine, you must first descend. The Greeks didn't just imagine the underworld, they mapped it with terrifying precision. Hades wasn't some vague shadowland. It was a kingdom as complex as Olympus itself, with its own geography, laws, and even currency. Picture this: a soul arrives at the banks of the River Styx, where Charon, the gaunt ferryman, extends his bony hand. Without the coin placed carefully in the mouth of the deceased payment for passage, you'd wander the shore for eternity, unheard and unremembered, but cross those dark waters and the true trial begins. Cerberus, the three-headed hound, guards the gates, his growls echoing through caverns where the air smells of damp stone and forgotten promises. Beyond him, the underworld fans out into realms as distinct as neighborhoods, the asphodel meadows for ordinary souls, Elysium for heroes, and Tartarus, a chasm so deep it makes the night sky seem bright where the wicked endure punishments tailored to their sins. What's striking isn't just the detail of this subterranean universe, but how it mirrored Greek values above ground. The coin for Charon, a reflection of their belief in preparation and debt. The judges of the dead Minos, Rhadamanthus and Aeacus, weren't arbitrary gods, but wise rulers weighing deeds with the same fairness expected in Athenian courts. Even the rivers had purpose. Lethe, whose waters erased memories, offered a cruel kind of mercy, while Phlegethon's fiery currents purified as much as they punished. This wasn't fantasy for entertainment. It was a moral compass carved into the earth itself. And then there were the caves. The Oracle of Delphi might have delivered prophecies under Apollo's sun, but the Greeks knew her power came from below. A fissure in the rock, their exhaled vapors said to induce visions, a literal breath of the underworld surfacing among the living. At Cape Matapan, locals whispered of a cavern leading straight to Hades, where priests performed rituals so secret even sunlight dared not follow. These portals blurred the line between worlds, making the distant realm of death feel unnervingly close. But perhaps the most haunting detail lies in the myth of Persephone. Her annual descent into the underworld didn't just explain the seasons, it revealed the Greeks' deepest anxiety, that even light must bargain with darkness. When she returned to the surface each spring, it wasn't just flowers that bloomed, but hope itself. The message was clear: the underworld wasn't just where life ended. It was where life began again, reshaped by what it witnessed below. In the end, these myths weren't about fear of death. They were about learning to navigate it with a coin in your mouth, a story in your heart, and the unshakable sense that even in the deepest dark, you might still find your way home. Beneath the sun-baked adobe villages of the American Southwest, hidden in plain sight, lie sacred spaces where the earth itself seems to hold its breath. The Pueblo people's Kivas aren't just rooms, they're living embodiments of creation itself. Step down the ladder into one of these circular chambers, and you're not just descending into a physical space. You're retracing the steps of ancestral spirits, following the path their myths say all life once traveled, upward from the dark womb of the underworld into the light. The Kivas' very architecture whispers this story. The hole in the floor, called the Sipapu, isn't merely a symbolic feature. It's a portal to the place of emergence, a tangible connection to the moment when the first people climbed through reeds and mud to reach this world. Even the air here feels different. The thick earthen walls muffle outside noise, creating a silence so profound it seems to hum with presence. When the Kivas' fire pit crackles to life during winter solstice ceremonies, the smoke curls upward through the roof opening, a reverse journey of the creation story, carrying prayers back to the spirits below. Every detail serves a purpose. The bench lining the walls isn't just seating, it represents the ledge where ancestors waited during their ascent, the ladder's rungs. They mirror the notches cut into the mythological climbing reed. This isn't abstract symbolism. For the Pueblo people, these elements transform the Kiva into a sort of time machine, where every ritual becomes a reenactment of those first sacred moments. What makes Kivas extraordinary isn't just their spiritual significance, but how they bind communities together. These chambers host everything from initiation rites to political discussions, the mundane and the sacred woven together seamlessly. Imagine generations of hands polishing the same stone seats during countless gatherings, the packed earth floor worn smooth by centuries of ceremonial dances. Unlike European cathedrals that reach skyward, Kivas embrace the earth's quiet power. They remind us that wisdom doesn't always come from looking up at the heavens. Sometimes it comes from listening to what the ground beneath us has to say. The Pueblo people's reverence for these spaces reveals a truth about subterranean structures worldwide. They aren't escapes from reality, but doorways to deeper understanding. When a Hopi elder speaks of the Kiva as the navel of the world, he's describing more than a metaphor. He's pointing to a universal human instinct that if we want to touch the divine, we must first be willing to step into the dark. The Kiva teaches that emergence isn't a one-time event in some distant past. It's happening still, every time we gather in these sacred pits to remember where we came from and to dream together about where we might go next. Somewhere beneath the Himalayas, if the legends are true, lies a kingdom untouched by time, a place where golden cities glow with eternal light and sages guard secrets older than civilization itself. This is Agartha, the mythical subterranean realm that has captivated explorers, mystics, and conspiracy theorists for centuries. Unlike the underworlds of ancient myth, Agartha isn't a land of the dead. It's a hidden utopia, said to be connected by a vast network of tunnels stretching beneath every continent. The stories vary wildly. Some claim it's home to an advanced race descended from lost Atlanteans. Others believe it's the refuge of a prehistoric master civilization that fled underground to escape catastrophe. What makes Agartha fascinating isn't just its elaborate lore, but how it mirrors humanity's deepest yearnings. The idea of a hidden world beneath our feet taps into something primal, the suspicion that there's more to reality than what meets the eye. Theosophist Helena Blavatsky wove Agartha into her 19th century spiritual theories, suggesting its inhabitants possessed psychic abilities and technology far beyond ours. Later, Nazi occultists became obsessed with the legend, funding expeditions to Tibet in search of its entrances. Even today, some point to strange phenomena, like the hollow earth theory or mysterious underground sounds recorded by scientists as potential proof that we're not alone down there. But Agartha's true power lies in its symbolism. In a world where every inch of the surface has been mapped and scanned, the idea of an uncharted realm just out of reach speaks to our hunger for mystery. It's no coincidence that modern versions of the myth often cast Agartha as a sanctuary of ancient wisdom, a place where enlightened beings have preserved knowledge lost to the surface world through war and greed. Whether real or imagined, Agartha represents the ultimate hidden chapter, a reminder that history might still have secrets waiting in the dark. The legend persists because it satisfies two opposing human instincts: the thrill of exploration and the comfort of knowing there's still somewhere left to explore. Every culture has its version of this duality: the Pueblo's Sipapu, the Greeks' Elysium, the Buddhist Shambhala. What sets Agartha apart is its distinctly modern flavor. It's not just a spiritual underworld, it's a speculative mirror of our own society, complete with advanced technology and political intrigue. In an age of satellites and satellites where few frontiers remain, the notion that an entire civilization could exist beneath us undetected is the ultimate escapist fantasy. Perhaps that's why these stories endure. They don't just fill the unknown with monsters or gods, they fill it with possibilities. The next great discovery, the next leap in understanding, might not come from the stars above, but from the earth below. And until someone finds a golden city beneath the permafrost or a tunnel lined with hieroglyphs no one can read, Agartha will keep its secrets and will keep dreaming our way toward them. Deep beneath the rolling hills of Cappadocia, where wind and water have sculpted the landscape into towering spires, lies a hidden world that defies imagination. Derinkuyu isn't just a cave or a tunnel, it's an entire city carved into the earth, a labyrinth of chambers descending 18 levels into the darkness, capable of sheltering 20,000 people at its peak. Picture this: narrow staircases spiraling downward, their steps worn smooth by generations of feet, leading to living quarters stacked like honeycombs within the rock. But this wasn't just a refuge, it was a fully functioning community, complete with stables for livestock, wineries for pressing grapes, and even chapels with arched ceilings where flickering oil lamps once illuminated frescoes of saints. What makes Derinkuyu extraordinary isn't just its scale, but the sheer ingenuity of its design. Ventilation shafts, some stretching nearly 200 feet to the surface, ensured fresh air reached even the deepest chambers, an ancient answer to the very modern problem of underground living. Massive circular stone doors weighing up to a ton could be rolled into place to seal off entire sections from invaders, their grooves still visible in the thresholds today. And the engineering didn't stop there. Channels carved into the floors diverted water to wells, while cleverly placed chimneys drew smoke from cooking fires upward, dispersing it through hidden exits to avoid detection from above. Every detail reveals a society that didn't just hide from the world, but thrived beneath it. The origins of Derinkuyu are as layered as the city itself. Some scholars trace its earliest chambers back to the Hittites around 3,000 years ago, while others credit Byzantine Christians expanding it between the 6th and 10th centuries as Arab raids swept across Anatolia. But the real magic lies in how it reflects the human instinct to adapt. When danger loomed, entire communities could vanish underground for months, their livestock, food stores, and even places of worship safely tucked away. The city's very existence speaks to a profound understanding of the earth not as an obstacle but as a protector, a living, breathing ally in times of crisis. Walk these passages today and you'll notice something unexpected. The walls whisper, not with voices but with traces of daily life, blackened patches where lamps once hung, grooves where millstones ground grain, and niches that held icons of faith. These aren't ruins frozen in time, they're a testament to resilience. Derinkuyu's deepest chambers even housed a cruciform church, its altar still intact, proving that even in the darkest depths, people carried their light with them. Perhaps what's most striking about this underground marvel isn't how it was built, but why it was abandoned. As threats faded and surface life grew safer, Derinkuyu's residents simply walked away, leaving behind a city that had served its purpose. Yet its legacy endures not just as a feat of engineering, but as a reminder that sometimes survival doesn't mean fleeing. It means digging in, quite literally, and finding a way to flourish where others might see only stone and shadow. In Derinkuyu's echoing halls, we don't just see a refuge from history's storms. We see the unshakable human conviction that no matter how deep the darkness, there's always room to build a home. In the quiet hum of an ancient Chinese mountainside, a feng shui master might press his ear to the earth, listening not just with his ears but with his bones. He's tracing the dragon lines, those invisible currents of Kai said to pulse through the ground like veins through a living body. To the untrained eye, a cave might just be a hollow in the rock, but in Chinese cosmology, it's a vital node where the Earth's breath gathers. These subterranean pathways weren't merely geological features, they were the circulatory system of the landscape itself, shaping where temples rose, where homes were built, even where emperors chose to lay their ancestors to rest. The concept of Kai transforms the underground from inert stone into something alive. Picture a labyrinth of energy channels beneath your feet, some carrying vibrant, nourishing currents, others stagnant or even dangerous. Feng Shui practitioners mapped these flows with astonishing precision, using divination rods and intuition to pinpoint where to dig wells or place graves. The famous Ming Dynasty tombs, nestled in the embrace of the Jundu Mountains, weren't just positioned for grandeur, they were carefully aligned along dragon lines to harness the Earth's vitality, ensuring prosperity for the imperial lineage. Even the Great Wall's winding path, some scholars suggest, follows these hidden meridians, turning a defensive structure into a conduit of cosmic harmony. But caves held special significance. Unlike man-made tunnels, they were nature's own sacred chambers, where Kai pooled like underground springs. Taoist hermits sought them out for meditation, believing the concentrated energy could accelerate spiritual awakening. The legendary Huanglong Cave in Hunan, with its cascading calcite formations resembling a golden dragon's scales, was said to amplify Kai so powerfully that a single night's sleep there could heal years of illness. Even today, visitors describe an uncanny tingling in their fingertips when touching certain stalactites, as if the stone itself hums with memory. Burial practices reveal just how deeply this belief ran. Elaborate tomb complexes often featured wind and water corridors, tunnels designed to guide Kai to the deceased, sustaining their spirit in the afterlife. A misaligned passage could mean the difference between ancestral blessings and generational misfortune. In one striking example, archaeologists discovered a Han Dynasty mausoleum where the entire floor sloped precisely 3 degrees eastward, funneling energy toward the sarcophagus like an invisible river. What makes this system remarkable isn't just its complexity, but its enduring legacy. Modern Hong Kong skyscrapers still consult Feng Shui masters before breaking ground, sometimes redesigning foundations to avoid cutting dragon lines. The Beijing subway's construction famously detoured around an ancient well believed to anchor the city's kai. Skeptics might dismiss it as superstition, but at its core, Feng Shui reflects a profound truth. Humanity's oldest wisdom often comes from learning to listen to the earth. When a Neolithic villager chose a hillside cave for shelter, he wasn't just avoiding predators, he was instinctively seeking alignment with forces we're only beginning to measure. The dragon lines remind us that the ground beneath us isn't silent, it's speaking. The real question is whether we've forgotten how to hear. Carved into the basalt cliffs of Maharashtra, the Ajanta and Ellora caves don't just house art, they are art, their very walls breathing with the devotion of generations. Picture a sculptor perched on a bamboo scaffold, chiseling the rock face by flickering lamplight, transforming solid stone into a cascade of celestial dancers and meditating saints. These aren't mere decorations, they're a dialogue between earth and spirit, where every curve of a Buddha's smile or flutter of a carved silk sash holds meaning. Ajanta's 30 caves, hidden in a horseshoe-shaped gorge, are particularly staggering. Here, 5th century artists mixed pigments from crushed lapis lazuli and malachite to paint scenes that glow even now. Prince turned, ascetic Siddhartha renouncing his palace, bodhisattvas with eyes that follow you like living beings. The play of light is no accident. Cave 26's stupa, bathed in sunlight filtering through a precisely angled window, seems to pulse with golden radiance during the equinox, a celestial clock etched in stone. But Ellora takes the synthesis of faith and geology even further. Imagine walking a single corridor where a Hindu temple gives way to a Jain sanctuary, their deities coexisting in the same mountain. The piece de resistance, the Kailasa temple not built but revealed. Workers carved downward from the cliff's top, removing over 200,000 tons of rock to free this monolithic shrine dedicated to Shiva. Every inch tells a story. Ravana shaking Mount Kailash, Parvati's playful smirk as she distracts her meditating lord, even a hidden panel where elephants appear to hold up the entire structure. The scale defies logic. This isn't architecture, it's reverse archaeology, uncovering a masterpiece the artists believed was already there, waiting in the stone. What makes these caves extraordinary isn't just their artistry, but their intimacy. In Ajanta's Cave 17, a painter left a cheeky inscription. "I'm exhausted," it reads beside a half-finished ceiling lotus. Elsewhere, palm prints linger where artisans pressed hands to wet plaster, a fleeting human touch preserved for 1,500 years. These spaces weren't just for worship, they were living communities. Monks debated philosophy in chambers designed to amplify whispers, while pilgrims rested in cells still bearing soot marks from their oil lamps. The cave's acoustics heightened the magic. Chant a mantra in Ellora's Vishvakarma cave, and the sound swirls around the pillars like invisible dancers, a phenomenon modern physicists attribute to precisely calculated reverberation chambers. The true genius of Ajanta and Ellora lies in their refusal to separate the sacred from the practical. Water channels cut into the ceilings diverted monsoon rains away from frescoes. Ventilation shafts disguised as decorative friezes kept the air fresh. Even the choice of basalt hard enough to endure centuries, soft enough to carve, speaks to a profound understanding of the earth's gifts. These caves remind us that devotion isn't just about reaching upward toward the divine. Sometimes it's about stepping into the quiet dark, where the boundary between artist and medium dissolves, and the mountain itself becomes the teacher. Beneath the surface of countless myths flows a common current water, hidden in the earth's depths, carrying more than just life. It carries meaning. Take the legendary Fountain of Youth, its waters said to bubble up from some unseen spring, promising not just longevity but transformation. Spanish explorers combed the swamps of Florida for it, convinced that this elusive source lay just beyond the next bend. But the truth is, versions of this myth appear everywhere. The ancient Greeks had their Lethe, a river whose waters erased memories, offering souls a clean slate before rebirth. In Hindu tradition, the Saraswati River vanished underground, becoming a mystical current said to surface only for the pure of heart. These stories aren't just about water's physical properties. They're about what it represents: renewal, secrets, the boundary between what we know and what we can only sense. Then there are the cenotes of the Maya, those shimmering sinkholes dotting the Yucatan Peninsula. To modern eyes, they're breathtaking swimming holes, their turquoise waters laced with sunlight. But to the Maya, they were something far more profound: portals to Xibalba, the underworld. Offerings of jade, gold, and even human remains have been found in their depths, gifts to the gods who controlled the rains. Drought meant the gods were displeased. Abundant harvests meant the sacrifices had been accepted. The cenotes weren't just sources of water, they were the pulse of civilization itself, a reminder that survival depended on forces hidden beneath their feet. Even the River Styx, that infamous boundary between life and death in Greek mythology, holds layers of symbolism. Its dark waters weren't just a physical barrier, they were a psychological one. To cross them was to accept the irreversible. Yet the river also had its guardians, Charon the ferryman, the oath-binding deities who watched its currents. This wasn't just a tale of endings, it was a map of transition, a way to conceptualize the journey every soul must take. What ties these myths together isn't just their setting, it's their paradox. Water, the essence of life, becomes a gateway to death, mystery, or rebirth depending on the story. The underground rivers of Celtic lore carried souls to the otherworld, while Norse myths spoke of the Well of Erd, where the roots of the world tree dipped into waters of fate. In each case, the subterranean isn't just a place, it's a process, a hidden force shaping the visible world. Perhaps that's why these stories endure. They remind us that what lies beneath isn't separate from us. It's the unseen foundation of everything. When a modern hiker stumbles upon a spring bubbling from a hillside, there's still a flicker of that old wonder, the sense that the earth is sharing something ancient, something secret. The myths may change their names, their gods, their rituals, but the truth remains. Water, especially the kind we can't see, holds a power that transcends culture. It's the original storyteller, carving its narratives in stone and memory, always moving, always just out of sight. Beneath the glittering boulevards of Paris, where cafe lights dance and laughter spills into the night, lies a shadow city built from silence and bone. The catacombs of Paris aren't just tunnels, they're an intricate mosaic of mortality, where skulls and femurs stack like macabre bricks in walls that stretch for miles. This underground ossuary holds the remains of nearly 6 million souls, a number so vast it's hard to comprehend until you stand before them, your breath shallow in the damp air. The story of how they got there is as fascinating as the spectacle itself. By the late 18th century, Paris cemeteries were overflowing, their stench seeping into cellars and contaminating water supplies. Something had to be done, so began the Great Relocation night after night, bone-laden carts rumbling through deserted streets as workers transferred the dead to their new limestone home. What makes these catacombs extraordinary isn't just their scale, but how they transform horror into something strangely beautiful. The bones aren't haphazardly dumped, they're arranged with eerie precision. Tibias form neat patterns, skulls grin in symmetrical rows, and occasional crosses or hearts crafted from pelvic bones interrupt the monotony. Some stacks even bear plaques naming the cemeteries they came from: less innocents, Saint Eustache, Saint Landry, like neighborhood signs in a city of the departed. This wasn't mere practicality. It was an act of reverence, a way to grant dignity in death even as the living reclaimed space above. Yet the catacombs also became a mirror for Paris contradictions. While Enlightenment philosophers upstairs debated reason and progress, workers below inscribed quotations about mortality on the arches. "Remember you must die," one reads, its letters weathered by centuries of dampness. The catacombs became a tourist attraction as early as the 1800s, drawing everyone from Napoleon to Victor Hugo, who found inspiration for Les Miserables in their echoing passages. Even during World War II, these tunnels served dual purposes. French resistance fighters hid in uncharted sections, while German soldiers set up a bunker near the ossuary itself, the living and the dead coexisting in uneasy silence. Walk these corridors today, and you'll notice something unexpected. The bones aren't just relics, they're a conversation. Some visitors leave flowers or notes tucked between femurs. Others pause to run fingers along a skull's smooth curve, as if touching history itself. The catacombs force us to confront a truth we often avoid, that beneath every bustling metropolis, beneath every era of human achievement, lies this same inevitability. But here's the paradox: it's not depressing. There's a peculiar comfort in these orderly stacks, in the way they acknowledge death while refusing to let it erase memory. What Paris Underground teaches us is that subterranean spaces don't just store bones, they store stories. Every skull belonged to someone who loved, feared, dreamed, someone not so different from the tourists who gawk at them now. The catacombs are more than a memento mori. They're proof that even in darkness we find ways to make meaning. And perhaps that's their greatest gift, not the reminder that we'll die, but the invitation to wonder what we'll leave behind in the light. Scandinavian parents still warn their children not to wander too far into the woods, not because of wolves or bears, but because of what might lurk beneath the mossy stones. Trolls, those hulking, slow-witted giants of Norse legend, weren't just monsters. They were the mountains themselves, their craggy faces emerging from cliff sides when the light hit just right. According to folklore, sunlight could turn them to stone, which is why you'll find so many oddly shaped boulders scattered across Norway's fjords, each one a troll caught mid-stride at dawn. But these creatures weren't mere bogeymen. Their underground halls, hidden behind waterfalls or beneath hollow hills, were said to hold treasures beyond imagining: golden cauldrons, swords that never dulled, even the occasional kidnapped princess. The message was clear: the Earth's depths were places of both danger and wonder, where greed and curiosity could lead you astray, or reward you beyond your wildest dreams. Meanwhile, in Wales, the Tylwyth Teg fairies, so beautiful their name literally means the fair folk, danced in mushroom rings atop ancient burial mounds. Unlike their tiny, winged Victorian counterparts, these beings were nearly human-sized, with an otherworldly allure that could make a person forget their own name. Farmers left bowls of cream at cave entrances to appease them, knowing full well that a stolen child or a mysteriously sour milk pail might be the price of disrespect. The Welsh weren't alone in these beliefs. Irish tales spoke of the Owls She, who retreated underground when humans claimed the surface, while Icelandic legends warned of the Huldufólk, hidden people who built elaborate stone homes just beneath the grassroots. These stories weren't whimsy, they were survival lessons wrapped in enchantment. A sudden landslide, the trolls were angry, a cow drying up overnight. The fairies had taken offense. By personifying the unpredictable forces of nature, our ancestors made the world feel less random, more negotiable. But perhaps the most fascinating subterranean dwellers were the dwarves of Germanic lore. Master smiths who forged Thor's hammer and Odin's spear, they were neither wholly good nor evil, just fiercely independent. Their underground forges glowed with heat so intense it could melt stone, and their craftsmanship was so exquisite that even the gods bargained with them. Unlike trolls who represented the earth's raw, untamed power, dwarves embodied its hidden potential, the idea that beneath the surface lay not just danger, but skill, artistry, and secrets waiting to be unlocked. These myths share a common thread. The underground wasn't empty. It was occupied, contested, alive. A farmer plowing a field might uncover a dwarf's tool or disturb a fairy's resting place, altering his fortunes in ways he couldn't predict. The Earth's hidden layers weren't just geological, they were social, populated by beings with their own rules and grudges, and that's why these stories endured. They taught respect for the unseen, for the delicate balance between taking from the land and being taken by it. Even today, when a hiker feels an inexplicable chill in a cave or a miner's pick strikes an oddly shaped vein of ore, there's a fleeting moment, half instinct, half memory, when the old warnings echo in the dark. The trolls may have turned to stone, the fairies may have retreated, but the ground beneath our feet still hums with their stories. The Great Pyramid of Giza has stood for over 4,500 years, its limestone facade whispering secrets to every generation that dares to listen. But for all the centuries of study, this ancient wonder still guards mysteries beneath its massive stones. In 2017, a team of scientists made a startling discovery using cosmic ray imaging, a void nearly 100 feet long, hidden deep within the pyramid's heart. Dubbed the Big Void, this space lies just above the Grand Gallery, its purpose as enigmatic as the pyramid itself. Is it a structural feature, a forgotten burial chamber, or something even more profound? Modern technology keeps peeling back layers, yet the answers only seem to multiply the questions. What's fascinating isn't just the existence of these hidden chambers, but what they might reveal about the pyramid's true function. Traditional theories paint it as Pharaoh Khufu's tomb, yet no mummy or treasure has ever been found inside. Instead, the pyramid's intricate design, with its narrow shafts aligning with celestial bodies, its subterranean chamber carved directly into the bedrock, hints at something beyond mere burial. Some researchers believe these spaces were part of an elaborate resurrection machine, designed to guide the pharaoh's soul through the Duat, the perilous underworld of Egyptian myth. The so-called air shafts leading from the king's chamber, they might not have been for ventilation at all, but celestial pathways pointing to Orion's belt, the constellation linked to Osiris, god of rebirth. Then there's the underground chamber, a rough-hewn room buried beneath the pyramid's base. Unlike the polished galleries above, this space feels primal, unfinished, as if the builders left it deliberately raw. Some speculate it represents the primordial mound of creation, the place where the Egyptians believed life first emerged from darkness. Others suggest it was a testing ground for rituals, where initiates faced symbolic trials before ascending to the higher chambers. The truth may lie somewhere in between. What's clear is that every inch of the pyramid, from its hidden voids to its subterranean depths, was infused with meaning, each stone part of a grand cosmological blueprint. The most tantalizing possibility that we've only scratched the surface. In 2023, another scan revealed a previously unknown corridor near the pyramid's main entrance, its walls oddly angled as if designed to deflect attention. Could there be more chambers waiting to be found? the Egyptian authorities are cautiously optimistic, employing non-invasive techniques to map the interior without disturbing the ancient structure. Every new discovery rewrites our understanding, proving that even the most studied monuments on Earth still hold secrets in their shadows. Perhaps that's the real lesson of the Great Pyramid's hidden spaces. They remind us that the past isn't a static thing to be uncovered and catalogued, but a living puzzle that shifts with each generation's perspective. The Egyptians didn't just build a tomb, they crafted a riddle in stone, one that continues to challenge us millennia later. And as long as those chambers remain unexplored, the pyramid will keep its greatest mysteries tucked away, safe in the dark. Beneath the quiet streets of Pueblo, Malta, lies a labyrinth that hums with secrets older than the pyramids. The Hal Saflini Hypogeum isn't just an underground temple, it's a time capsule from the Neolithic era, carved painstakingly over centuries into the island's soft limestone. Step inside and the air changes, thick with the weight of 5,000 years. But what truly sets this place apart isn't just its age or its maze of chambers. It's the way sound behaves here. Whisper a word in the so-called oracle room, and your voice doesn't just echo, it resonates, vibrating through your bones as if the very walls are answering. The acoustics of the hypogeum aren't accidental. Every curve, every niche seems calculated to manipulate sound in ways that defy explanation. Sing a low note in certain chambers, and the frequency amplifies, filling the space with a drone that lingers long after you've stopped. Researchers have measured reverberation times of up to 3 seconds, an eternity in acoustic terms, suggesting the builders understood principles of sound waves millennia before modern science named them. Some speculate the temple was designed for rituals where chanting or drumming could induce altered states of consciousness, the vibrations literally shaking participants into transcendence. Then there's the so-called Holy of Holies, a chamber adorned with red ochre spirals that seem to pulse in flickering torchlight. Stand in its center, and your voice takes on an unearthly quality, as if you're not alone in speaking. The effect is so pronounced that early excavators reported feeling an unseen presence, a phenomenon later attributed to infrasound, frequencies just below human hearing that can trigger visceral reactions. Whether by design or eerie coincidence, the hypogeum's architecture taps into something primal, a reminder that sound isn't just heard, it's felt. Modern experiments only deepen the mystery. When archaeologists replicated ancient instruments like bull roarers or clay drums, their tones matched the resonant frequencies of the chambers, creating harmonics that seem to activate the space. Even more intriguing, the hypogeum's layout mirrors Malta's above-ground megalithic temples, suggesting a sacred blueprint where the earth itself became an instrument. For a culture that left no written records, these sonic signatures might be their loudest surviving message. What lingers in the hypogeum's shadows isn't just the ghost of forgotten rituals. It's the realization that our ancestors didn't just build for the eye, they composed for the ear, crafting spaces where architecture and acoustics danced together. In these echoing passages, the boundary between the physical and the spiritual dissolves, leaving only the hum of the earth's oldest song, and if you listen closely, it still sings. The Norse underworld wasn't a place of fire and brimstone, it was a realm of cold mist and quiet, where the dead walked in a twilight that never brightened and never fully faded. This was Hel, named for its ruler, the half-living, half-corpse goddess who presided over those who met unheroic ends, the old, the sick, those who died in their beds rather than with swords in hand. But don't mistake this for a simple afterlife. Hel's Hall, Iljudnir, with its walls of writhing snakes and dishes named Hunger, was a place of eerie elegance where even in death the Vikings saw structure and purpose. The goddess herself, daughter of the trickster Loki, wasn't a villain but an impartial judge, her face split between beauty and decay, a walking reminder that death comes for all, whether they're ready or not. Beneath Hel's domain, something even more profound pulses through the darkness, the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree. This colossal ash isn't just a metaphor, it's the spine of Norse cosmology, its branches cradling the 9 realms while its roots dig deep into the wells of fate. One of these roots stretches directly into Hel, anchoring the underworld to the tree of life itself. It's a stunning image. Death isn't separate from existence but woven into its very fabric. The other roots reach toward Mimir's well, where Odin sacrificed an eye for wisdom, and the spring of destiny guarded by the Norns, the weavers of fate. Together, they form a network as intricate as the veins in a living body, proving that for the Vikings, the underworld wasn't an end. It was a necessary thread in the tapestry of the cosmos. What makes this mythology so compelling isn't just its vivid imagery but its brutal honesty. Unlike traditions that promised eternal paradise, the Norse acknowledged death's inevitability without sugarcoating it. Even their greatest heroes knew that only half of them would feast in Odin's hall, Valhalla, while the rest would descend to Hel's muted halls. Yet there's a strange comfort in this realism. The underworld wasn't a punishment, it was simply where most souls would go, a place as natural as winter following autumn. And through Yggdrasil's roots, even in that dim realm, the dead remained connected to the living world above, bound by the same tree that held the universe together. Perhaps the most haunting detail lies in the prophecy of Ragnarök, the end of all things. When the final battle comes, even Hel's dead will rise, marching alongside Loki's monstrous children to face the gods in a clash that will consume the world. This cyclical view where destruction leads to renewal shows how deeply the Norse understood balance. The underworld wasn't just a destination. It was a reservoir of forces waiting to be unleashed, proof that darkness and light are 2 sides of the same coin. In their myths, the roots of the world tree drink from Hel's shadows just as they do from the wells of wisdom and fate, because to the Vikings, death wasn't the opposite of life. It was part of its rhythm, as inevitable as the roots deepening with every passing season. Deep in the caves of Lascaux, where sunlight hasn't touched the walls for 17,000 years, a torch flickers to life, revealing a stampede of horses painted in ochre and charcoal. Their legs stretch mid-gallop, frozen in motion as if the rock itself breathes beneath them. This isn't just art, it's a time machine. The artists who worked here didn't simply depict animals, they captured their essence, using the cave's natural contours to give shapes depth, turning bulges in the stone into muscular shoulders or swaying bellies. These underground galleries weren't random doodles. They were sacred spaces where the act of painting blurred the line between the physical and the spiritual. Take Altamira's famous bison, their hides shimmering with red and black gradients so lifelike you'd swear they're breathing. The ceiling is low, forcing the artists to work on their backs, their arms aching as they blended pigments with fat and spit. Why go to such lengths in the darkest, most inaccessible corners of caves? The answer might lie in the echoes. In many of these chambers, sound behaves strangely, whispers bounce off walls, footsteps resonate like drumbeats. Some researchers believe these spaces were chosen for their acoustics, where chants or rituals could merge with the art, creating immersive experiences that transcended the everyday. The caves weren't just canvases, they were theaters of the unseen. But the real mystery isn't just how they painted, it's why. Unlike later art, which often tells stories or honors rulers, these images feel more like conversations. Handprints stenciled in negative as if saying, "I was here." overlapping figures of aurochs and deer painted across generations like a visual prayer for abundance. In Indonesia's Sulawesi caves, archaeologists found even older paintings 45,000 years of wild pigs mid-charge, their outlines daubed with deliberate, almost reverent strokes. The consistency across continents suggests something universal, a need to reach beyond survival, to imprint meaning onto the dark. What's striking is the intimacy of these works. In Chauvet Cave, a child's footprints wander alongside a bear's paw prints, preserved in the soft clay. In one chamber, a single set of adolescent footprints leads to a niche where someone crouched to sketch a mammoth, their knees leaving impressions in the earth. These aren't just artifacts, they're frozen moments, proof that even in the Ice Age, humans sought connection with each other, with the animals they depended on, with forces they couldn't name. The pigments themselves tell another story. Red ochre, mined and carried for miles, wasn't just paint. It symbolized blood, life, perhaps even the spirit of the hunt. In some caves, artists blew pigments through hollow bones, their breath literally animating the images. The act of creation was as important as the result, a ritual where the boundary between artist and subject dissolved. When a shaman in Argentina's Cueva de los Monos pressed his palm to the wall and spat red pigment over it, he wasn't just leaving a mark, he was stepping into the rock, merging with the unseen world. These caves challenge our assumptions about primitive art. The artists understood perspective millennia before the Renaissance, used shading techniques that would stump modern painters, and composed scenes with a rhythm that feels almost musical. Their work wasn't a crude first attempt, it was a peak, a tradition honed over thousands of years. And then, as climates changed and humans moved above ground, the practice faded, leaving these galleries as silent as the bones buried in the cavern's deepest chambers. Yet their legacy pulses in the dark. When Picasso emerged from Lascaux in 1940, he reportedly said, "We have invented nothing." In those swirling bulls and stenciled hands, he recognized a truth: art wasn't born to decorate. It was born to conjure, to plead, to remember. The caves remind us that humanity's first masterpieces weren't hung in sunlight. They were whispered into stone where time itself hesitates to touch them. And if you listen closely to the silence, you can almost hear the echo of that first brushstroke, still vibrating across the millennia. In the ancient city of Uruk, where the Euphrates whispered against sun-baked bricks, the goddess Inanna fastened her crown and prepared to walk where no deity dared, into the belly of the underworld. This wasn't just a myth, it was a masterclass in Mesopotamian soulcraft. The Sumerians called the underworld Ker, a realm not of punishment, but of unflinching order, where the dead existed as shadows, their memories dissolving like clay tablets in the rain. But Inanna's journey wasn't about death. It was about power. She descended through 7 gates, each stripping away a piece of her divine regalia. Her lapis lazuli necklace, her golden breastplate, even the very garments that marked her as Queen of Heaven. By the time she stood naked before her sister Ereshkigal, ruler of Ker, Inanna was no longer a goddess, but a corpse hung on a hook. The message was clear: the underworld didn't recognize titles or glory. Here, everyone was equal before the inexorable scales of fate. What makes this myth extraordinary isn't just its stark imagery, but its layered symbolism. Inanna's resurrection, engineered by loyal servants who bargained with the gods, wasn't a free pass. She had to send someone back in her place, a reminder that all transformations demand sacrifice. The Sumerians saw the underworld not as an end, but as a crucible. Even the mightiest couldn't bypass its laws, just as no river could flow backward against the Tigris current. The details reveal a civilization deeply preoccupied with balance. Ereshkigal wasn't a villain, she was a mirror, reflecting the necessary darkness that balanced Inanna's radiant authority. The seven gates paralleled the seven celestial spheres of Mesopotamian cosmology, suggesting that ascent and descent were two sides of the same journey. Even the ritual reenactments of this myth performed by priests in subterranean temples emphasized its enduring truth. True power required confronting what lay beneath. This wasn't just storytelling, it was existential arithmetic. In a land where floods could erase cities overnight, where dynasties rose and fell like reeds in the wind, the myth of Inanna gave shape to chaos. The underworld wasn't a place to fear, but a system to respect, a realm where even goddesses learned humility, and where every return to the light carried the weight of what was left behind. The Sumerians understood something we often forget, that descent isn't defeat. Sometimes it's the only way to rise. New York City's subway workers swap stories about the woman in the white dress, a spectral figure glimpsed on late-night platforms only to vanish when trains screech to a halt. Moscow metro engineers whisper of tunnels that don't appear on blueprints, their walls scarred with symbols no one can decipher. These aren't just ghost stories, they're proof that even in our hyper-connected age, the underground still breathes mystery into the cracks of modern life. Urban legends thrive where concrete meets shadow, where the hum of fluorescent lights can't quite drown out the sense that something or someone might be watching from the dark. Beneath London's bustling streets, the abandoned Down Street tube station fuels speculation about its wartime role as Churchill's secret bunker, its dusty corridors still lined with vintage telephones and faded maps. But the truth is, cities worldwide are honeycombed with forgotten spaces that blur fact and fiction. Beijing's sprawling underground city, built during the Cold War to shelter millions, now lives in rumor. Some say it houses clandestine labs, others insist it's home to communities who have never seen daylight. The allure isn't just in the secrecy, it's in the possibility that parallel worlds exist beneath our feet, operating on rhythms we'll never understand. Then there are the myths that refuse to die, like Denver International Airport's Apocalypse Bunker. Its murals of fallen soldiers and burning cities sparking conspiracy theories about elite safe rooms buried beneath the baggage claim. Never mind that officials dismiss these claims, the real power lies in how these stories expose our anxieties. A hidden tunnel isn't just a passageway, it's a metaphor for the unchecked power we suspect moves beneath the surface of our lives. What's fascinating is how technology fuels these legends. Security cameras capture blurred figures in Tokyo's ghost stations, only for playback to show empty platforms. Sonar maps reveal voids beneath Egypt's pyramids, and suddenly, the internet buzzes with tales of lost libraries or alien chambers. We're wired to fill emptiness with narrative, to turn static into whispers. The underground has always been humanity's Rorschach test. Whether you see ancient gods or government secrets depends on which fears you bring into the dark. Yet for all their embellishment, these modern myths share DNA with their ancient counterparts. The Minotaur's labyrinth and the Denver tunnels both speak to a primal truth. We build stories to navigate what we can't control. When a commuter swears they saw a phantom train roar past on a disused track, they're not just sharing a spooky tale. They're keeping alive the oldest human tradition, peering into the abyss and daring it to peer back. Beneath the scorching deserts of Persia, where the sun turns sand to molten glass, runs a hidden lifeline, a network of tunnels so ingenious it transformed barren land into flourishing oases. The Canats, as they're called, aren't just irrigation channels, they're masterpieces of climate engineering dating back over 3,000 years. Picture this. Workers dug vertical shafts deep into the foothills, tapping into underground aquifers, then carved gently sloping tunnels that carried water for miles, all by gravity alone. The brilliance wasn't just in the engineering, but in the understanding of the Earth's natural insulation. Above ground, temperatures might soar past 120 degrees, but inside the Canats' cool, dark passageways, water flowed undisturbed, free from evaporation. Villages built around these systems didn't just survive, they thrived, with lush gardens and public baths that seemed like miracles in the desert. Half a world away, in the arid plains of Rajasthan, another subterranean marvel rose to meet the climate's challenges. The Stepwells of India, like Chand Bayore's dizzying 13 stories of sculpted staircases, were more than water sources. They were natural refrigerators. As sunlight baked the surface, the well's deep recesses remained up to 20 degrees cooler, preserving not just water but perishable goods. The intricate design served dual purposes. The steps provided access as water levels fluctuated with the seasons, while the shaded alcoves became communal gathering spots where villagers escaped the heat and shared stories in the cavernous quiet. What unites these ancient systems is their harmony with the environment. Unlike modern air conditioning, which fights nature with brute force energy consumption, the Canats and Stepwells worked with the Earth's rhythms. The Canats' underground channels minimized water loss, while the Stepwells' thermal mass stabilized temperatures passively. These weren't just feats of survival, they were acts of reverence, acknowledging that the solutions to human hardship often lie hidden beneath our feet. Today, as climate change pushes us to rethink sustainability, these ancient innovations are experiencing a quiet revival. In Iran, restored Canats irrigate drought-stricken farms, while architects from Madrid to Melbourne study Stepwells' passive cooling principles for green building designs. The lesson isn't just about technology, it's about mindset. Ancient builders didn't see the Earth as something to conquer, but as a partner in problem solving. When a modern engineer in Peru channels pre-Incan subterranean aqueducts to combat water scarcity, or a designer in Texas mimics Stepwells' shade structures to cool urban plazas, they're tapping into a timeless truth. Sometimes progress doesn't mean inventing something new, but remembering what we've forgotten. The Earth's subsurface has always been a climate moderator, its temperatures stable, its rhythms predictable. Our ancestors knew this intimately, sculpting their lives around these hidden constants. In an era of escalating extremes, their wisdom whispers a challenge: to stop fighting the elements and start learning from them. The Canats and Stepwells stand as silent mentors, proving that the most sustainable solutions aren't always breakthroughs, but rediscoveries, waiting in the cool, dark places we've overlooked. There's a reason your pulse quickens when you step into a cave's mouth, or why even the thought of being trapped in a tunnel sends a shiver down your spine. Underground spaces trigger something primal in us, a cocktail of fear and fascination that's been brewing since our earliest ancestors first sought shelter in the dark. Psychologists call it subterranean anxiety, a visceral reaction to environments where the rules of the surface world no longer apply. Darkness isn't just the absence of light. It's a sensory void that strips away our primary tool for navigation, vision, forcing us to rely on echoes, touch, and the uneasy awareness that we're no longer at the top of the food chain. This instinct runs deep. Studies show that humans share an evolutionary aversion to confined spaces with mammals across the animal kingdom. In the wild, enclosed areas mean predators, traps, or dead ends, threats hardwired into our amygdala, the brain's alarm system. MRI scans reveal that when subjects imagine being underground, this region lights up like a warning signal, flooding the body with stress hormones. Yet paradoxically, that same fear often flips into exhilaration. Think of the adrenaline rush when exploring a cavern, or the eerie calm of standing in a centuries-old catacomb. This duality, terror and awe, is what makes subterranean spaces so compelling. They're one of the few places left where we can safely flirt with the unknown, testing our limits while knowing we can retreat to the light. Cultural narratives amplify this tension. From Dante's descent into the Inferno to the mines of Moria in The Lord of the Rings, underground realms are mythologized as trials of courage or wisdom. These stories resonate because they mirror our internal struggles. A labyrinth isn't just a physical maze, it's a metaphor for life's uncertainties where every turn demands a choice. Even modern horror films leverage this psychology. Claustrophobic tunnels in The Descent or the suffocating silo in 10 Cloverfield Lane tap into universal fears of being buried alive or forgotten. But the allure isn't just about confronting fear. Underground spaces offer something rare in our hyper-connected world: true disconnection. In the depths, the chatter of phones fades and the pressure to perform dissolves. This might explain the growing popularity of dark tourism, where visitors flock to nuclear bunkers or abandoned subway stations. These places aren't just novelties, they're antidotes to modern overload, spaces where the mind can reset in the weighty silence of stone. Perhaps most fascinating is how these environments distort time. Without natural light, circadian rhythms unravel. Miners working underground for months report losing track of days, while cave explorers describe a dreamlike suspension of reality. This temporal ambiguity might explain why so many cultures associate the underworld with eternity, from Hades' timeless realm to Buddhist descriptions of bardo states between lives. In the dark, the present stretches and contracts, making minutes feel like hours or vice versa. Yet for all their psychological intensity, underground spaces also foster profound connection. Catacombs and crypts remind us of shared mortality, while sacred caves from Tibet to Mexico serve as communal portals to the divine. Even in utilitarian spaces like Tokyo's underground flood tunnels, colossal chambers built to divert typhoon waters, there's an uncanny beauty in humanity's collaboration with geology. The takeaway: our relationship with the underground isn't just about fear or curiosity. It's a dialogue between instinct and imagination, where every shadow invites us to ask, what lies beyond the edge of the known, and more importantly, who might we become by stepping into it? The moment you duck into the mouth of a lava tube in Iceland's Rofahólshellir cave, the world above vanishes, replaced by walls of rippled basalt that glow under your headlamp like frozen thunderbolts. This isn't just sightseeing, it's stepping into the Earth's workshop, where molten rock once raced toward the sea, leaving behind tunnels so vast they could swallow cathedrals. Subterranean tourism turns geology into theater, letting visitors walk through the aftermath of volcanic tantrums or glacial patience, each site whispering its own origin story. Take Poland's Wieliczka salt mine, where medieval miners carved entire chapels from rock salt, their chisel marks still visible on statues of saints that gleam as if dusted with diamond frost. Or Kentucky's Mammoth Cave, where Civil War-era graffiti shares walls with indigenous petroglyphs, proving that humanity's urge to leave its mark transcends centuries. What draws us isn't just the novelty of going underground, it's the way these spaces collapse time. In Turkey's Derinkuyu, you can press your palm against the same soot-blackened ceiling that sheltered Bronze Age families from invaders, while in Vietnam's Sun Dune Cave, sunlight pierces sinkholes to illuminate jungles thriving where no human set foot until 2009. Guides often become storytellers, bridging ancient myths with modern science. In New Zealand's Waitomo Caves, Maori legends of the Taniwha water spirits intertwine with explanations of the glowworms whose bioluminescence turns caverns into starry skies. This fusion of lore and geology satisfies something primal, the need to feel wonder without surrendering understanding. Safety measures have democratized these once forbidding realms. China's Reed Flute Cave installs colored LEDs to highlight limestone formations named Crystal Palace or Dragon Pagoda, while Barcelona's abandoned textile mines repurpose shafts as concert venues, their natural acoustics amplifying cello suites. Yet even commercialized sites retain their edge. Walking through Paris Catacombs past stacks of femurs, or floating in Mexico's cenotes where Mayan priests once performed sacrifices, there's no escaping the whisper of mortality. These aren't sanitized theme parks, they're encounters with raw history, where every dripping stalactite holds millennia of patience. The rise of dark sky underground preserves, like Slovenia's Postojna cave, highlights another shift, recognizing subterranean ecosystems as vital rather than just eerie. Blind salamanders and translucent insects thrive in these lightless worlds, their existence challenging our assumptions about life's limits. Tourism funds their protection, creating a paradox: human footsteps preserve what they once endangered. Perhaps the deepest allure lies in reclaiming childhood curiosity. Crouching to enter a sea cave in Algarve or spelunking through Colorado's ice caves, we rediscover that visceral thrill of exploration before maps made the world feel small. These journeys remind us that adventure didn't vanish. It just went underground, waiting for anyone willing to descend. The soft drip of water echoing through a cave might sound timeless, but each droplet carries a silent threat, dissolving limestone, shifting ancient murals, rewriting history one molecule at a time. From the fragile salt crystals of Wieliczka to the painted bison of Lascaux, subterranean heritage faces a gauntlet of modern challenges. Acid rain etches away at medieval catacomb inscriptions, while the warmth and humidity from tourist breath destabilize cave art pigments that survived for millennia untouched. Even well-intentioned explorers leave invisible damage. Skin oils alter the chemistry of rock surfaces, and stray flashlight beams foster algae growth where darkness once preserved perfection. But the dangers aren't just natural. In Turkey's Cappadocia, entire underground cities suffer structural stress from nearby construction vibrations, while Mexico's cenotes sacred to the Maya now grapple with sunscreen and microplastics leaching from swimmers. The dilemma is acute. How do we share these wonders without loving them to death? Some sites have adopted radical solutions. Lascaux Roman II, a painstaking replica built after the original cave closed in 1963, allows visitors to experience the art without harming it, while Altamira restricts access to a handful of researchers annually, monitoring conditions with laser scanners that detect microscopic changes. Technology plays a dual role, both villain and savior. 3D mapping projects like Scotland's Digital Dwelling preserve at-risk sites in virtual reality, creating immersive experiences that reduce physical foot traffic. Meanwhile, in Ethiopia's sacred Lalibela tunnels, engineers install passive ventilation systems to mimic ancient airflow patterns, preventing mold without modern machinery that could disrupt the site's spiritual ambience. The most innovative approaches blend old wisdom with new science. At Cambodia's Angkor Wat, where underground water table fluctuations threaten temple foundations, hydrologists work alongside Buddhist monks to revive centuries-old reservoir systems that once balanced the ecosystem. Similarly, Navajo guides in the American Southwest incorporate traditional knowledge into cave management plans, recognizing that some sites require not just physical protection but ritual respect. "You wouldn't shout in a cathedral," says one conservator. "Why would you treat the Earth's sacred spaces differently?" Yet preservation isn't just about locking sites away, it's about redefining their value. In Rome, the Domus Aurea's buried chambers, once Nero's decadent palace, now host controlled, humidity concerts, where musicians perform in climate-stabilized suits, their melodies resonating through spaces that would crumble under normal crowds. It's a delicate dance, honoring the past while ensuring it has a future. After all, these underground treasures don't just belong to us. They're holding places for stories we haven't finished hearing, and their whispers demand more than just preservation. They demand reverence. As we resurface from this journey through the world's subterranean chambers, one truth becomes clear: these hidden spaces are more than just physical formations. They are keepers of stories, guardians of myths, and mirrors of human curiosity. Whether through sacred rituals, artistic expression, or sheer survival, cultures have long used the underground to make sense of the world above. The echoes beneath the earth remind us that history is not just written on the surface, it's buried in the depths, waiting to be discovered. So the next time you walk over a city street or a quiet field, remember, beneath your feet lies a world of untold stories. What other secrets might the earth be guarding? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more journeys into the unknown. Think of the last time you stood on solid ground. How often do we consider what lies beneath? The earth's hidden chambers are like a global subconscious, holding the memories, fears, and dreams of civilizations long gone. From the echoing halls of Derinkuyu to the sacred silence of the Hypogeum, these spaces challenge us to look beyond the obvious, to dig deeper, literally and metaphorically. They remind us that progress isn't always about moving forward. Sometimes it's about descending, uncovering, and listening to the whispers of those who came before. And yet, for all we've explored, so much remains uncharted. Modern technology reveals voids beneath the Great Pyramid, while sonar maps hint at undiscovered networks under Antarctica's ice. The Earth guards its secrets well, revealing them only to those patient enough to seek. Perhaps that's the greatest lesson these subterranean realms offer. Mystery isn't something to be solved, but respected. Whether it's the quiet devotion of a monk meditating in a Himalayan cave or the awe of a child holding a flashlight in their first cavern, the underground invites us to marvel at the unseen. So here's to the explorers past, present, and future who brave the dark to bring light to these hidden chapters. Their discoveries don't just rewrite history books, they reconnect us with the timeless human impulse to wonder. After all, every tunnel, every crypt, every painted chamber is a testament to the same question. What else is out there waiting in the dark? The answer, it seems, is always just one step beyond the beam of our headlamps. Until next time, keep looking down. You never know what you might find.